Pleasure to be here. When we're on the campus, I realized how much I want to go back to school. I'm a bit jealous of all of you photography students because this is the most exciting time to be a student. This is actually, I think, the most interesting and formative time, and at least it was for me. When I graduated in 2009 from ICP, which is only one-year program, I was in New York, and I was, like many students after art school, kind of lost and didn't know what I want to do. Just taking pictures of kids for family albums mostly. I kind of almost gave up on the idea of being a photographer. I thought it was so challenging, and I didn't know how I could make it into the photography world. And I decided that I'm just going to go back to my homeland because this is where I wanted to go, regardless if I'm a photographer or not. I was born in a very special place. It's called Tiksi, and it's right on the shore of Arctic Ocean in Russia, in eastern Siberia. Back in the Soviet time, it was built as an important military base during Cold War. It was a secret town. Until this day, you cannot actually enter. My parents went to Tiksi when they were young, madly in love with each other, exploring this new land. At that time, Arctic in Soviet Union was almost like flying to the moon. There was this idea of northern explorations, and I was born there. I had a very happy childhood. At that time, Arctic ideas were used in cartoons and children's books and films, and you were always kind of surrounded by it. My favorite cartoon, called Magic Flower. The protagonist of the cartoon is a girl called Zhenya, which is my name as well. I'll just want to show you this little episode from this cartoon. So she has this magic flower, and then she can take a petal and make a wish, and her wish will come true. And she made a wish to go to the North Pole.
Лети, песок, через запад на восток, обрети вокруг земли, быть, по-моему, вели. Вели, чтоб я сейчас же заносился в поле.
Сейчас я тебя, девочка, съем.
Ой, мамочка!
Zhenya from the cartoon needed a magic flower to get herself to the South Pole, and I was kind of already there. At the time, I remember even being a kid, I realized how much of a special place it is and felt lucky that I'm there. I remember every Sunday there was a program by Jacques Cousteau, who is my absolute hero. I would watch his programs and imagine that I'm Jacques Cousteau and dreaming of times when I will join Calypso ship and go explore the world. My favorite film that he produced was The Voyage to the Edge of the World, where he went to Antarctica and flew above the ice on this fantastic balloon, air balloon. And that kind of, those landscape kind of also reminded me of things that I have in my backyard. I would gather my friends and we would play expeditions on the shore of the Arctic oceans, and of course I was the leader of expedition, Jacques Cousteau. In 1991, it was the fall of the Soviet Union. My country had lots of things to deal with, and they stopped to finance its northern projects. My parents were teachers. They stopped getting salary, everything stopped. People started to pack and move to other cities, and they boarded their windows and just moved. It was very fast, so the population of Tiksi, 12,000 people, now it's only 4,000 people living there. I was missing Tiksi a lot. I was missing this really ideal little world of mine with aurora borealis and the vastness of tundra and the winds. As it usually happens with memories, they kind of start to transform into some surreal images, and I was wondering if I'm actually making it up, or does this place really exist? And I asked my mom, is it true that the whole sky was like pink or green, and is it true that the winds are so strong that I felt like I'm flying, the wind picks me up, and I'm going to random places? And my mom was like, yeah, it's kind of true, but you're kind of making it up at the same time. After ICP, 19 years later, I decided to go back to Tiksi. And when I arrived, I found this place completely different from how I remember it. Now it's an almost abandoned town, and as you can see on this picture, all the windows are closed. There's not many people on the streets. And I was really sad. I remember I was wandering around town and thinking, okay, why did I come? I shouldn't be coming back here. And then I met this girl. Her name is Tanya. She's on the left. She is a very special girl. She's very adventurous. She's really fun. And she sees Tiksi like I saw it when I was a kid. Tanya with her best friend, Pasha. This is just before Christmas in Russia. We have this tradition of dressing up and going around houses, singing songs, kind of like your Halloween. This is Tanya in her snow mask. I wore the same mask when I was a kid. She loved wearing this mask, and she was saying that she feels like astronaut on Neptune. She always was singing or talking very loud when she was wearing this mask, because she's like, I love this echo inside. It's actually for protecting the face from the snowstorms. I mean, wind can get really, really strong. It can get to 28 kilometers per second. And then we went exploring different places. She showed me around town. Sometimes we had to walk for, close to 10 kilometers. But it all worth it, because we would discover a castle of weather magician, for example, and we're just wandering around as a snowstorm started to pick up. As it turned out, Tanya is also a fan of Jacques Cousteau. She wears the red hat as a tribute to her hero. Her dad gave her a full DVD collection of Jacques Cousteau for Christmas, and we were rewatching it. This is my playground. When I was a kid, I was playing here and imagining myself as an astronaut. And in fact, it's kind of strange, because all children's playground in Tiksi, they're all rockets. Because there was this kind of strange obsession with space and Arctic, and you kind of feel like you're on a different planet in Tiksi, because everything is so flat, like a moon surface. During Soviet time, Tiksi was an important seaport on the route of Northeast Passage. And I remember there was so many ships coming in during summer all the time. But now it's not functioning anymore. Although now with global warming, Russia is looking into it again. Not only Russia, but the whole world, because now the season for navigation is getting longer and longer. All people who live in Tiksi, they're hoping that life will come back to the seaport. Tanya is playing Titanic. Sometimes snowstorms could last for 3 days, sometimes a week, so people in Tiksi always have food enough to sustain them for a week. But then you just don't go out of house for several days. And in times like that, it's quite boring, so we were just playing games and playing ballerinas. So this is one of those days. I was really amazed by the way Tanya sees the light and the colors. There's not much to look at. It's very flat, and during winter it's always dark. During summer it's always light, because it's above Arctic Circle. After the dark winter, people get really excited about the sun, and This is February. It was already maybe 2 weeks that the sun appeared. One day Tanya told me, let's go to see a mountain made of blueberry ice cream. I have to go at 4 p.m. So we went. She's like, see, I told you. It looks just like blueberry ice cream, this pink color. And I was just so amazed how she noticed this. And she knew exactly the time. So she was helping me a lot with photography. What other places should we explore? So she was my guide. This is actually former military training ground. But Tanya said that one day she said, let's go to the playground made of matches. And when we arrived, I was like, okay, yeah, it kind of does look like matches. And it's kind of dangerous too for kids to play. But local kids come here all the time. Then another time, Tanya and her sister told me, let's go to this gigantic TV antenna. And we arrived there, I'm like, girls, this is not a TV antenna. In fact, this is like a locators for back from Cold War. I photographed this antenna for so many times. I don't know, I probably have 50 versions of this. But I knew that it has to be a good picture. I really wanted it in a story, but it just kind of didn't work. And one day we went, and Tanya had this LED light, flashlight torch, and her sister had like this normal tungsten light. And then the aurora borealis just started on the background, and there was nice light from the city, and finally the picture happened. This is the strong snowstorm, and here I didn't know actually that I'm going to get a picture because I didn't see anything, and I thought, okay, the only way to get it is to use flash. So I'm on the ground kind of trying to take a picture, but I don't see anything. I was just hoping that somebody would pass by or something's going to happen, and it happened. This is New Year night, and I'm coming back home after a party that I had together with a local meteorologist. Russians obviously like to drink a lot, and there was a sound from every door. There's like people singing songs, music playing, and then I stumbled upon this dog, and I didn't have a camera with me. I was like, oh, I need to take this picture. But I lived like 2 floors up. So I tiptoed by the dog, went up, took a camera, then I'm like, no, it's too dark, I need a tripod. I went back again, took a tripod, tiptoed back, set up my tripod, the camera, I took a picture, like lots of pictures, and this dog didn't open one eye. I think he was really drunk. This is near Seaport. And this is an old lighthouse. But Tanya said that this is a spaceship. But when she saw the picture, she's like, oh, this is a spaceship. But then she couldn't decide if it's landing or it's taking off. And this is her and her sister. Summertime, June. And this was a really beautiful day. And Tanya was like, okay, let's go for a walk. Maybe I can take pictures of you and the ice. And she really wanted to wear this dress. At that time, she was already 13, and she was growing so fast. She's like, please, take a picture of me with this dress. I think I'm going to grow out of it, like, tomorrow. We were just walking around, and then there was this dog following us. There's actually a lot of homeless dogs in Tixi, because in 1991, when everybody left, they didn't take their dogs with them. The whole community of these dogs, and they really want to have an owner, so they just follow you. This is at the meteorological station, and this woman, her name is Irina. She lives in Tixi already for more than 20 years. She's from St. Petersburg, and she arrived to Tixi, and she fell in love with the place and stayed. And her job is to let go of the weather balloon once a day. This is all she does. She just goes out in the open tundra and let it go. And she loves her job. I was asking her, I was curious to see how many thousands of balloons she had let go in her life. I tried to calculate, but then she's like, I don't think it's possible because I don't remember how many sick leaves I had, how many vacations I had. But I thought it would be such a perfect caption. Like Irina, meteorologist, she let go of like 25,000 balloons in her lifetime. And then the other interesting character is Uncle Vanya, who I was just walking along the coast, and then I stumbled upon this weird shack. The sign says Vanka, which means bathing house in Russian. And then he came out, and we became friends. Did you live in this house, on this floor? He's like, yeah. And I remembered he was my neighbor, and I was terrified of him. I never dared to talk to him because he had doves, and in summer he would let them go, and they would flip and turn. He would whistle and clap his hands, and they would, do like different figures in the air and all this. And I thought he's some kind of a dark magician. Yeah, strange character, but he's very kind, and somehow in Russia we say about these people kind of being touched by a person that's been touched by God, which means kind of person who lives in his perfect world, very naive. Local people can be actually, especially like teenagers, are very cruel to him. They come to this shack and destroy it once in a while. But he's like, oh, they're just kids. He puts it back together. He's a writer. He's a regular contributor to the local newspaper, the Lighthouse of the Arctic. And he writes stories about how to raise a family, how to be a good husband. He never had a family. His only friend is this dog. This shack is where he writes. This is his office. This is where he writes these articles. And this is his apartment. He's also an artist. Check out this painting with the polar bear and walrus eating ice cream. And you see the dried mushrooms that he collected in tundra probably like 10 years ago. And he likes music. He said, okay, I'm going to play trombone for you. And he started playing, and the cloud of dust came out. And I missed that moment. One day, Tanya told me that she can be invisible. This is like a classic weather in Tixi in winter. Overcast sky, and this is what I really love about Tixi, is that sky gets so white and snow is so white that you don't see the difference between sky and the land. And you kind of feel like you're in space zero, like you're in some vacuum. And she borrowed this camouflage hunting costume from her dad. And she was running in the lake and sliding, and I seriously couldn't see her. This is Uncle Vanya fishing in summer. He fishes just for himself, but mostly for a dog. And then we were coming back to town. And back in the day when I lived in Tixi, all these houses were really bright colors. Now they're kind of all faded. Because when you live in the Arctic, there's this dangerous thing of color starvation. So people tend to paint houses really bright and wear bright clothes. This is also in the seaport, old barge. And here, Tanya already turns 14, and she starts to have some misunderstandings with her family, with her parents. And this is the place where she comes to kind of regain her inner peace, drops the stones in the water. Tanya in her room, I was talking to her, telling her something, and then I turned around and I kept talking to her, and then I turned back again and she was sleeping. I looked at her, I realized that she's growing up, that she's not a little girl anymore. And I felt that maybe this is when I should stop the story, where I should stop to photograph, because I think that the reason why I came to Tixi is to kind of close this childhood channel that was kind of so abruptly cut. And then I made a decision that that's enough, because I was working on this for 2 years. I was coming back to Tixi for a couple of weeks, sometimes 3 weeks. And when I said to Tanya that I finished and I'm going to go back, she was really sad, because we became really good friends. And we're still really good friends. She's actually now goes to college, and she's going to be a heart surgeon. She's really smart. She's amazing. And I told her the day when I was leaving, she said, okay, well, I can't sleep. I couldn't sleep either. It was 4 in the morning, and she's like, let's go for a walk. We went for a walk, and it was really foggy outside. And she said, let's climb the mountain, the only mountain that there is. It's not really a mountain, it's a hill. And we went up the hill. It was still really cloudy. And then all of a sudden, the clouds started to disappear, and this golden light appeared and we were laying on the ground, and I was just saying goodbye to Tanya and to Dixie. Then I'll show you another project that I did in the Arctic. I was always fascinated by meteorological stations. You know, there is this time space that exists on our planet that is not connected to any time zones, which is a meteorological time. In this particular hour and minute of this meteorological time, meteorologists around the world come out at the same second and record the climate, the temperature, pressure. Our planet is kind of wrapped with this system, grid of meteorological stations. And some of them are really remote. I always dreamt to visit Arctic meteorological stations. There are some stations that are located on islands that are just, 3 kilometers wide, and there are 2 or even 1 person living there for years. At that time, I got into a workshop called Sword. It's in Amsterdam. It's for young photojournalists. And I decided to use this opportunity and cover that story. And the only way I could do that is to go on the icebreaker that delivers supplies to this hard-to-reach meteorological stations. So I wrote the letter to this Arctic advisor of Putin saying that I'm a young photographer, I'm from Tixi, and I really want to go on board of icebreaker. And I didn't hope for any reply. I got a reply. He's like, I worked in Tixi for a long time. Sure, get on board. Leave in 2 weeks. Okay. When I work on the project, I like to build kind of reference board. It's kind of how filmmakers work. And I love European painting of 19th century, that era of when they were depicting these great explorers of the Arctic or other unknown lands. And this is, for me, this painting represents so much of that fascination, the landscape really, and the smallness of a person, but also the will. While working on this project, I looked a lot at the paintings to kind of understand the aesthetics. And I think it comes across a lot in this project. Like, for example, with Tixi, I was looking a lot at the cartoons and the children's books, and that's why the composition is rather simplistic and very central. The colors are really bright, kind of resembling cartoons and illustrations. So I looked at some films about first explorers of the Arctic, meteorologists. So this is a station, it's a screenshot from the film, one of the first meteorological stations in the Arctic. One of my favorite films, Two Captains, this film from the 50s where a man went in search for the lost expedition. This is another picture from the film of these researchers that were stranded in this faraway meteorological station. But you'll understand, I'll tell you later why I'm showing you. They brought this bird with them. Birds in the polar night became the center of their station because they really missed something, alive and warm. This is the ship that I went on board on. This is a picture from 50s. It's a very old, heroic icebreaker. It went to Antarctica and was stranded in the ice, and now it's really in bad condition, and it works in the Arctic, delivering supplies to meteorological stations. So I spent 2.5 months on board. This is my view. The cafeteria was really bad on board. We were given oranges once a week on the weekend. And then on Sunday I would hear knocks and sailors would give me the orange as a present. So I had this collection of oranges. So I visited 22 stations. The one that fascinated me the most was in this small peninsula in Barents Sea called Hadavarika. It's very, very narrow. You can literally walk from one shore to another in 30 minutes. And I met the chief of the station. His name is Slava. And when I first saw him, I instantly recognized his jacket. This is the kind of jacket that all men would wear in Tixi. He is this representation of the long-lost era of Arctic explorers, kind of this old Arctic wolves that sacrificed their life for Arctic exploration. These are the men who read Hemingway and lead solitary life. They're the dreamers. And I don't think this generation doesn't exist anymore, really, because when I went to the biological stations, there were some young scientists now, but they're all with their laptops, satellite phones. And for me, Slava, he's doing his research, but he's there also because he's so in love with the land. And also he's not able to really live in the city, in our society. He says that, why everybody's running around? I don't understand. I don't understand why when I'm in the city, I have to follow a certain path. Why I cannot cross the road wherever I want. In Tundra, I can walk wherever I want. I'm completely free. How you say, our rush for money, for career, and all this, he thinks it's really not important. So in that sense, he's kind of a Zen monk. When I just arrived at the station, it was in summer, and I could only stay for 1 hour. And when I met Slava, I realized, okay, this is a really special person who will have to come back. In winter, I got a grant, and I hired my own helicopter to fly there. And I decided to do it on New Year Eve. So I bought some oranges, champagne, flew there. I couldn't let him know that I'm coming because the radio signal was really bad. And they didn't hear from him for a really long time. So I thought, okay, I'll just fly and show up there. And when I landed, the helicopter is still working, it's really loud, and I'm screaming like, do you mind if I'll stay here for a couple of weeks? He's like, sure. And I stayed. The first day I arrived, actually, it was a beautiful full moon. And there is this old lighthouse, which is now used as a firewood. And so Slava is now walking to the lighthouse he kind of disassembles it slowly for wood. There's no really sense of time in the station because it's always dark. So this is winter, so the sun never shows itself. It all felt like one long night. And the only way I could feel the time is by hearing Slava's steps going out every 3 hours to take measurements. And then he would come back to his office and record the data in this old yellowed by time journal. This is a meteorological field booth with thermometers. When he went to record the temperature, all of a sudden aurora started, kind of exploded in the sky. And I took the picture, and at that moment it felt like he's turning the knob, he's turning on the aurora borealis. To me, he became kind of a weather magician who speaks with the wind and can light the stars. Along with oranges and champagne, I brought the bird as a Christmas present. And Slava was very happy, and it's his friend now. And he's talking to the bird every day. One detail that I noticed only after I was back already, there's this onion growing. And usually when you grow something, it kind of grows towards the light, towards the window. But here it grows towards him. One day I felt quite heavy and depressed because nothing really goes on. And I came to Slava, and he doesn't really talk much. He told me, he's like, I wish I could talk to you, but I'm so used to talking in my own head that it's so foreign to me to put things into words. And one day I was like, okay, we gotta talk. How do you leave here? Like every day is the same, nothing happens. And he said, are you crazy? Every day is so different. Today you saw this phenomenon of thin ice on the water. You know how rare this is? Then look at the sky. The clouds are completely different. Pressure dropped. The snowstorm is coming. It dropped so much that it's probably going to be the strongest storm that you've seen so far. How can you say that every day is the same? And from that moment, I was so embarrassed of myself to be some kind of surfacey, And I started to try to see everything through his eyes and to take a notice of little things in the weather. So this is how he starts his day, kind of looking out the window. He has lots of free time. So he's building these little houses made of matches. This is the only means of communication, the old radio. And sometimes when the radio signal is really low during a snowstorm, he still uses Morse code, actually, which is so, like, who uses Morse code now? And when he communicates with the main office to deliver data every 3 hours, they didn't even ask, how are you? No, he just says his code number, his code name, and then the rest goes with just numbers, temperature, pressure, and so on. This was a really nice day. It was so calm and quiet, and it's very rare actually for this area. And Slava is enjoying his cigarette in a handmade boat. He says that he actually chose this station because he could choose from different locations. Actually, it's very easy to choose because every station almost in the Russian Arctic are understaffed and nobody wants to work there. And he picked this peninsula because he was born on the ship. His mom was a cook and his dad was an engineer. So all his childhood he spent on the ship. And he says that in this peninsula he feels like he's on this gigantic ship because he's surrounded by water and he can hear the ocean all the time. Last image from this project, view from the house. This is in the middle of polar night. How am I going to photograph in the darkness? But really there are so much different shades and there is light that creates this really interesting colors. It's very special. I haven't seen these colors anywhere else in the world. The latest project that I did was actually in Africa. I was participating in a conference, anthropological conference in Oslo. An anthropologist told me that he's working on this really interesting project in Tanzania, this abandoned malaria research station in the middle of lush forest in the Sambara Mountains. He said that he's studying dreams and nostalgia. And I thought, well, this sounds like my type of project. So as I was learning more about the story, I was more and more interested. And then I went together with anthropologists to Africa, actually my first time. Amani is a station that was established by German colonists before World War II. They arrived and they built coffee plantations and botanical gardens. And then after World War II, British came and they built this malaria research station. And at that time, Africa was considered as living laboratory, and lots of discoveries were made. British scientists came and they established their own kind of little perfect world. But then after independence in Tanzania, they left. Now this place is almost abandoned. And I met John Ganga, who used to be an assistant to this famous British scientist. And he became a protagonist of my story. He showed me around the forest. Here he's showing me how he was catching bugs for research. This is a collection of insects that he gathered together with the British scientist inside the lab. So John is retired and he doesn't have to come to the station, but he comes almost every day, takes care of the specimens in the jar, dusts the floor, dusts the shelves, sweeps the floor. There's also a colony of white mice. There's a person who's still, everybody calls him Mouse Man. He's taking care of this mice, but there's no research going on, so I don't know, it's been like this for years, but he still keeps doing it, so there's lots of mice. These keepers of the station, they have nothing to do there, so most of the time they sleep or talk to each other inside the lab. So these are the remains of German botanical garden. As I was walking around the night, I saw this signs in Latin which seemed to me some kind of phrases from some Latin spell. When British scientists first came to Tanzania, local people were calling them mumiani, which in Swahili means vampires, because they were coming at night to the villages to collect samples of their blood for malaria research, and locals thought that they're doing it to perform their sinister rituals. Actually, John told me that his peers tried to kill him many times because he was assistant of Mumiani. One of the things that they were doing every day, local people would come to the lab and they would be paid like very small money, and they would hold their hand for hours and feed the mosquitoes in the cage. It's a strange place. It feels like time stopped there, but at the same time, all the local assistants who used to work there, for them, science was so big, and they love to belong to something bigger than them, and they really hope that scientists will come back one day. That's it.
Good afternoon. I'm Emily Prince, and on behalf of the Opera House, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the very first Southeast Ohio Poetry Out Loud semifinal contest. Today's contest is one of 6 semifinals held this month throughout Ohio. I'd now like to introduce Chiquita Mullins-Lee, Arts Learning Coordinator at the Ohio Arts Council.
I'm ecstatic. This is a really good day. I think back to December 2006 when I was hired to be Poetry Out Loud Coordinator. Thank you, Nelsonville. Thank you, Southeast Ohio. Poetry Out Loud is an arts education initiative generously sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation in association with the Ohio Arts Council. And I've had the privilege of seeing and hearing the best poetry ever written recited by high school students who learned about poetry and about themselves. The first Poetry Out Loud Ohio State champion went on to win the national finals. As yes, 2017 marks the 12th anniversary of Poetry Out Loud. My heart is full. Thank you for this opportunity, and we're going to move forward.
We are very pleased to be holding the first Southeast Ohio semifinal. Dayton, Toledo, Columbus, Cleveland, and Nelsonville. Here in our historic Stewart's Opera House. In its storied past, Stewart's was home to traveling performances, high school graduations, and community meetings. Support for our programs comes from the Ohio Arts Council, the Rocky Community Improvement Fund, the Athens Foundation, Klein Penny Education Fund, Seth Teicher and the Epstein-Teicher Philanthropies, and our generous donors, especially LaRue Properties. My biggest thanks go to Wendy McVicker, our Poetry Out Loud Regional Co-Coordinator, who has helped every step of the way, from leading school workshops to teaching me a love of community, language, and poetry. And I'd like to now introduce my friend and today's MC, Mr. Micah J. Covert.
Dan Gordon, he's a Northern Irish actor. He says, here's the thing, arts are not a luxury, they are a right. So now, art is coming to us, but it's a two-way street. We're building better venues, we're having more festivals in more communities. Art is becoming a byword for progress, and how lucky we are to have in Southeastern Ohio Stewart's Opera House. So the 4 school champions today come from throughout Southeast Ohio. Each of them competed at their high school and won the privilege of representing their school at this semifinal contest today. Each student will recite 1 poem in each round. The contestants are scored in 6 categories: physical presence, voice and articulation, dramatic appropriateness, evidence of understanding, overall performance, and accuracy. I'd like to thank our 3 distinguished judges, Alan Cohen, Kate Fox, and Becca Lockman. Our first contestant is Sylvie Wilson. She is a sophomore of Athens High School.
The poem is Mechanism by A.R. Emmons. Honor a going thing. Goldfinch. Corporation. Tree. Morality. Any working order, animate or inanimate. It has managed directed balance. The incoming and outgoing energies are working right. Some energy left to the mechanism. Some ash, enough energy held to maintain the order and repair, assure further consumption of entropy, expending energy to strengthen order. Honor the persisting reactor, the container of change, the moderator. The yellow bird flashes black wing bars in the new leaving wild cherry bushes by the bay, startles the hawk with beauty, flitting to a branch where flash vanishes into stillness. Hawk addled by the sudden loss of sight. Honor the chemistries, platelets, hemoglobin, kinetics, the light-sensitive iris, the enzymic intricacies of control. The gastric transformation, seed dissolved to acrid liquors, synthesized into chirp, vitreous humor, knowledge, blood compulsion, instinct. Honor the unique genes, molecules that reproduce themselves, divide into sets, the nucleic grain transmitted in slow change through ages of rising and falling form. Some cells set aside for the special work, mind or perception rising into orders of courtship, territorial rights, mind rising from the physical chemistries to guarantee that genes will be exchanged. Male and female met the satisfactions, cloaking a deeper racial satisfaction. Heat kept by a feathered skin. The living alembic body heat maintained, Bunsen burner under the flask, so the chemistries can proceed. Reaction rates, interdependent, self-adjusting with optimum efficiency. The vessel firm, the flame staying, isolated, contained reactions. The precise and necessary, worked out of random, reproducible. The handiwork redeemed from chance. While the goldfinch, unconscious of the billion operations that stay its form, flashes, chirping, not a great songster, in the bay cherry bushes, wild of leaf.
We have Gracie Miller. Gracie is a freshman in Logan, Ohio. Gracie.
Sheltered Garden by H.D. I have had enough. I guess regrets. Every way ends. Every road, every footpath leads at last to the hill crest. Then you retrace your steps, or find the same slope on the other side. Precipitate. I have had enough. Border pinks, clove pinks, wax lilies, herbs, sweet cress, over some sharp swish of a branch. There is no scent of resin in this place. No taste of bark, of coarse weeds. Aromatic, astringent. Only border on border of scented pinks. Have you seen fruit under cover that wanted light? Pears wadded in cloth, protected from the frost. Melons, almost ripe, smothered in straw. Why not let the pears cling to the empty branch? All your coaxing will only make a bitter fruit. Let them cling, ripen of themselves, test their own worth. Nipped, shriveled by the frost, to fall out last but fair with the russet coat. Or the melon, let it bleach yellow in the winter's light, even tart to the taste. It is better to taste of frost, the exquisite frost, than of wadding and of dead grass. For this beauty, beauty without strength, chokes out life. I want wind to break, scatter these pink stalks, snap off their spiced heads, fling them about with dead leaves, spread the path with twigs, limbs broken off, show great pine branches hurled from some far wood right across the melon patch, break pear and quince, leave half trees torn and twisted, but showing the fight was valiant. Oh, to blot out this garden, to forget, to find a new beauty in some terrible, wind-tortured place.
Sophomore at John Glenn High School in New Concord, Ohio. Mary?
The Snowman by Wallace Stevens. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time to behold the junipers shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, in the sound of a few leaves, which is the sound of the land full of the same wind that is blowing in the same bare place, for the listener who listens in the snow and nothing himself beholds nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is.
Is Raven Reedy, freshman at Southern High School in Racine, Ohio. Raven?
A Poison Tree by William Blake. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night till it bore an apple, bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning, glad, I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree.
It is my honor to introduce Wendy McVicker, our poet in residence, and Emily Prince, our education director.
So happy to see so many people here today. I did ask quite a few people saying, please, these wonderful kids reciting magnificent poetry should have a larger audience than their teachers, their parents, and the judges. Not only have these been magnificent performances, it's magnificent poetry. We call ourselves another language altogether. This is called sea walls. There were walls by the sea, and you climbed them. How could you not? Stone walls, ancient, holding wind and grass where once houses grew and people. Now the sea has come close, now the sky. You stand and swing your arms, you are taller than the world, and the sea shuffles far below. It cannot touch you. Are you lonely? Do you wish you had stayed here with me? I don't think so. You don't look as if you are missing me, missing anything. You look away, exhilarated by wind and salt. You When you have become cloud, I will wait for rain.
For Philip Hobsbawm. Late August, given heavy rain and sun for a full week, the blackberries would ripen. At first, just one, a glossy purple clot, among others, red, green, hard as a knot. You ate that first one, and its flesh was sweet like thickened wine. Summer's blood was in it, leaving stains upon the tongue and lust for picking. Then, red ones inked up, and that hunger sent us out with milk cans, pea-tins, jam pots, where briars scratched and wet grass bleached our boots. Round hayfields, cornfields, and potato drills we trekked and picked until the cans were full, until the tinkling bottom had been covered with green ones, and on top, big, dark blobs burned like a plate of eyes. Our hands were peppered with thorn pricks, our palms sticky as blueberries. We hoarded the fresh berries in the byre, but when the bath was filled, we found a fir, a rat gray fungus glutting on our cash, the juice stinking too. I always felt like crying. It wasn't fair that all the lovely canfuls smelt of rot. Each year I hoped they'd keep, knew they would not.
Quite Frankly by Mark Halliday. They got old. They got old and died. But first, okay? But first they composed plangent depictions of how much they lost and how much cared about losing. Meantime, their hair got thin and more thin as their shoulders went slumpy. Okay, but not before the photo albums got arranged by them. Arranged with a niftiness. Not just 2 or 3, but 18 photo albums. Yes, 18 eventually. 18 albums proving the beauty of them and not someone else. Them and their relations and friends, incontrovertible. Playing croquet in that Bloomington yard, floating on those comic inflatables at Dell Lake, giggling at the Dairy Queen, waltzing at the wedding, building a Lego palace on the porch, holding the baby beside the rental truck, leaning on the Hemingway statue at Pamplona, discussing the eternity of art in the Sardinian restaurant. Yes, and so, quite frankly, at the end of the day, they got old and died. Okay, sure. But quite frankly, how much does that matter in view of the 18 photo albums? Big ones 13 inches by 12 inches, each full of such undeniable beauty.
The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats. I will arise and go now and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there of clay and walls made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honeybee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the veils of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. While I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's gray, I hear it in the deep heart's core.
Pity the Beautiful by Dana and Joya. Pity the beautiful, the dolls and the dishes, the babes with big daddies, granting their wishes. Pity the pretty boys, the hunks and Apollos, the golden lads whom success always follows. The hotties, the knockouts, the 10s out of 10, the drop-dead gorgeous, and the great leading men. Pity the faded, the bloated, the blousy, the paunchy Adonis, whose luck's gone lousy. Pity the gods, no longer divine. Pity the night, the stars lose their shine.
Photos would be long and awkward. Y'all feel free to talk amongst yourselves.
I was ready. Sylvie Wilson, Athens High School. Gracie Miller, Logan Hocking High School. Harry Harmon, John Glenn High School. And last but not least, Raven Reedy, Southern High School. The judges have reached their final decisions. Again, before we announce, I'd like to congratulate you for participating today. Your hard work brought you here, and I trust you found it a rewarding experience. We all greatly enjoyed your performances. You've done impressive work bringing these poets' verses to life. Thanks to each of you for reminding us of the importance and relevance of poetry today, and we look forward to hearing from each of you in the future. But we will present but one finalist with an invitation to compete in the state finals in Columbus on March 4th. Name of the student who will be advancing the state finals, please step forward if your name is called. Our state finalist is Harry Harmon. So, congratulations, Harry. Thank you again to each of you. Thank you to our volunteers. Thank you to Stewart's Opera House and the Ohio Arts Council, Wendy and Ellie. Thank you to the parents, grandparents, and the teachers and schools. This concludes our competition for today. Contestants, you are invited, mandated, to stay on stage for photographs, and you're welcome to greet all of our judges and talk with them if you wish. Judges, please come up on the stage now. Thank you again for coming and sharing in the celebration of learning and literature. And we invite you to Ohio's Poetry Out Loud State Final at the McConnell Center in Worthington. Have a safe drive home. Thank you.